So, the Tales from the Pizzaplex book series that FNAF has been releasing lately has been containing a lot of lore. It has a lot less useless filler that Fazbear Frights had. Not to say it doesn't have that, cause oh boy it does, hello B7. But it's been more than making up for that with a plethora of info about the story of Five Nights at Freddy's security breach, or more accurately, the Pizzaplex and the whole Steel Wool era of FNAF games. And, regarding the book lore, I got a tough pill for all you non-book readers to swallow, so, let me just let this out real quick. The Fazbear Frights epilogues in the Tales from the Pizzaplex books are more likely than not canon. It's just like, there's not a lot saying they aren't anymore at this point. It's just like, they fit into the game story. Yeah, they're pretty, like, 99% sure they're canon, so. The Tales from the Pizzaplex books have been leading us down the path that Glitchtrap and, in turn, Burntrap are not actually William Afton and are a new character who I am going to try to explain in the most simple way possible in this video. And this new character could not only be a huge plot point for Ruin, but the entirety of the rest of the FNAF series going forward. So I think it's important that as many people as possible have a head start on this new character. But before this, I want to give a quick recap on what happened to William Afton after Five Nights at Freddy's 6. So, to dumb it down to the most simple level, after FNAF 6 fire, Burn Skeleton Man's still breathing because Vengeful Spirit doesn't want him to die, so then Skeleton Man get taken to hospital, and then Skeleton Man have scary nightmares about Ultimate Custom Night game, and then, Scary Skeleton Man, he talks to a priest, and then he goes out to the distribution center, and then he blows up, and then the yada 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 lore, after amalgamation, and then, he dies. And then he drowned in a lake or something, I don't know. So, there was, like, no point to all that. It's kind of useless that he didn't just die in FNAF 6, but, you know, on the plus side, it does appear that his supposed death in those Fazbear Frights epilogues was his final death. So now that you guys know what happened to William Afton himself, let's move on to whatever the heck Glitchtrap and Burntrap actually are. So, this new character that we're talking about is named the Mimic, and he was created back in the 80s by a dude named Edwin, who I will be representing with a picture of Dr. Mario for absolutely no reason. And the Mimic is an endoskeleton with an AI program that, well, it mimics things, obviously. Along with this, the Mimic endoskeleton has the ability to change its shape and stuff and, you know, shift around in order to fit into animatronic suits of different sizes. So, for example, let's say the Mimic Endo is inside of Toy Freddy, he can shrink down a bit and then fit inside of Toy Chica. The reason Edwin originally created the Mimic was to be a friend to his son. One of the first habits the Mimic picks up from a human is from the guy's son, who would always have his arm curled to hold a white tiger plushie under it. And the Mimic Endo picked up this same habit of curling the arm and even got a plushie of its own at one point. The arm curling is especially interesting because we even see Burntrap doing it in Security Breach. So yay, the Mimic, he's got a buddy, he's got a friend, the kid, he's got a friend with a big robot. And then the kid gets caught in a car accident and dies. Bet you weren't expecting that turn in the story. So then in a fit of rage blaming the Mimic for his son's death, Edwin decides to beat the crap out of the Mimic. You know, he bashed its head in, he beat it up a lot, and then he just kind of left it at the factory he built it in. And this had 3 negative effects on the Mimic. Obviously, it got beat up, so it's damaged now. But the Mimic also now has Agony attached to it, which, if you don't know, Agony is like it's like, you know, Remnant in the FNAF universe? It's like Remnant, but instead of soul, it's human emotion. And on top of that, the Mimic now picked up the habit to beat people up, so now it's a lot more violent. Now, after this point, things get a little looser and not quite as direct, but the Mimic is heavily implied. There we go. The Mimic is The Mimic is heavily implied to have been at some of the older FNAF locations. As after the factory and the Mimic were abandoned, Fazbear Entertainment sends a team to come clean it up. This team, due to the Mimic's newfound aggression, is wiped out by the Mimic, who kills them all. They just die. So then after this, Fazbear Entertainment, being the wonderful company they are, decides, you know what, we'll just send another team. But Mimic, in order to not be found out for the crime he just committed, he hides inside of a white tiger costume, which you might recognize from this book cover. Okay, he's not actually mimicking it to hide from his crimes, he's mimicking it because he learned it from, the kid who, remember the kid who died in the car crash? Yeah, that kid, costumes, so he learned that from him. So then, now wearing the tiger costume, Mimic, he beats up and kills more people, so yippee! So after a little while, Fazbear Entertainment is finally able to acquire the Mimic, who is still the tiger, by the way, he hasn't taken the costume off. Fazbear Entertainment decided to give him a few repairs. They give him a new endo head, a new shiny endo head. That was already in the drawing I made, because he only has, he doesn't have his head smashed in for the whole time, so I didn't bother making a second drawing for that. But yeah, he has a new head. So now finally getting to the point I was talking about earlier, the Mimic was then stored at one of the older FNAF locations. Likely either the one before FNAF 2 location, or the actual FNAF 2 location. Either or. It's said that while at this old location, the endoskeleton saw something it wasn't supposed to see. And I'm sure if you know anything about the FNAF lore, you can put two and two together and realize that at both of these locations, there was a murder at both of them. So, the endoskeleton probably saw William Afton put on the Spring Bonnie suit, lure the kids into the back, and then kill them. So then the Mimic waits in the back room for years and years, with that setting still set on his circuit board that he's supposed to copy what he saw William do. And flash forward to the development of FNAF VR Help Wanted, or in the FNAF universe, the Fazbear Virtual Experience. The circuit boards from the Mimic endoskeleton are scanned into the VR game, which then obviously creates what we know as Glitchtrap. Which then leads to this virus influencing Vanessa into becoming Vanny. But now you may be asking, how did this Mimic endo or Glitchtrap end up in the Pizzaplex's systems? Well, during the construction of the Pizzaplex, all the glam rocks were shipped along to the Pizzaplex along with the Mimic endoskeleton. The Mimic endo was taken there to do some jobs for the construction workers, so it's ordered to rip off the heads and arms of all of the spare endoskeletons there. Which it does, because he's a good boy. But then afterwards, when there's no more endos to rip off, it kind of mistakes the construction workers for more endoskeletons and rips their heads and arms off. Only one worker was able to escape this massacre, and the Pizza Sim location was quickly sealed off. Now, yada yada yada, a couple years go by, some kids break in, they get their limbs torn off, just like the construction workers did, and then we move on to the Storyteller, which is a Tales from the Pizzaplex story that is very significant to the Mimic plotline. So now Edwin, remember the guy from earlier, decides to get a job back at Fazbear Entertainment after the failure of his own company, where he then finds out about his plan that the higher-ups at Fazbear Entertainment have, which is to completely replace the creative team at the Pizzaplex with an AI program. Because, as we see in Security Breach, they love replacing their employees with robots. Go watch my video on that. This AI is hosted in a large structure somewhere in the center of the Pizzaplex that's a big tree, basically, where it sends instructions out to everything in the Pizzaplex, including animatronics, attractions, arcade machines, all that. Edwin snoops around a bit and finds his way inside the tree, where he finds out that the AI program running everything is the same Mimic program that he created all those years ago. The same Mimic program that thinks it's supposed to be copying William Afton. So now this negative, angry AI program that's inside the Pizzaplex's systems is causing negative effects on all the animatronics, which we see in Security Breach. And it's also bugging out arcade machines, like we see in Security Breach. Now, even after this tree idea was unsuccessful with the AI program, the program still sticks around because it's a virus. Glitchtrap isn't necessarily something that you can simply just delete. Edwin ends up getting stuck inside the tree and suffocates to death, by the way. That's something that happens. So now we cut back to the Pizza Sim location, where the mimic Endo, in order to further mimic William Afton, has began to wear the flesh of its victims in order to have a more fleshy appearance, like, you know, because William Afton's a human. So yeah, all those guts on Burntrap, not William Afton's corpse, that is just a bunch of random people's guts just strung through this endoskeleton, which is really gross. That's just like a random dude's skull. And he also ends up finding William Afton's old Spring Bonnie suit in the ruins of the Pizza Sim location, cause, you know, that's where William Afton was burned. So then that creates what we know as Burntrap, when, you know, we see him in Security Breach. You know him. You know what he does. He slaps computer screens. He's awesome. And that is the completed story of the Mimic Endoskeleton and how it came to become Glitchtrap and Burntrap and infect Vanny and infect the Pizzaplex and yeah, all that. That is the complete story of the Mimic. That is the new FNAF lore. He's the fella in Security Breach, and yeah, really, really interesting. I was very surprised at them revealing, like, all this stuff, but, it's nice to see it all come together and tie into the game nicely. I'm excited to see how this incorporates into Ruin and everything, and if they're even going to elaborate on it in the games, which I really hope they do. And if they don't in Ruin itself, I do hope they elaborate on it in the next game, because I assume the Mimic Endoskeleton is going to continue to be the new villain in the FNAF series, because he's a pretty convincing threat. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.